Hello and welcome again to Telecom TV. I'm Martyn Warwick and I'm talking with Alfonso Carrillo Aspiazu, who is Chief Architect Online Networks at Telefónica. First of all, welcome and thanks for coming in to talk to us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Not at all. Let's start with a nice easy one. What is zero-touch automation?
Zero touch. Oh, zero touch, it depends. If we look at from the operator side, it means that we have the least amount of intervention while providing a service or instantiating a new product. And sometimes left out is from the user or customer point of view. Zero touch means that they can do or configure their product or services without having to call our service centers, something that rarely happens today, especially with the most complex services. Even with the easy service on the residential side, the minor change always required hand intervention or human intervention, and that's not zero touch. So it's easier to define it as what is not and to what it should be.
Okay, thank you. Now then, when we were talking off camera, we were talking briefly about vendors. You mentioned vendors. I'd like to talk to you about that. Vendors, of course, are very keen to court CSPs like Telefónica. They want to sell things to them. And so they keep banging on the door. My question is, what is the best thing the vendor community could do to help CSPs on this transformation journey if they were to take a slightly different approach?
For us, in the project we're working on, that we are doing most of the work with ourselves without the help of any major vendor or any vendor. What we find is that when we look at the legacy equipment, it is hard to get into it. It is too much proprietary stuff, too much functionality that it is not needed for the services we provide, and slow to come to market. Very slow to bring new features, very slow to upgrade, very slow to listen to what we want, what we need. RFIs and RFQs, which is the mode that we operate as telcos nowadays, don't help vendors neither, because it's a document. Cold document doesn't express what the needs are. So I think dialogue has to be improved from both ends. And then also we need to do a little bit of what our OTT major competitors now do. I don't think telcos are competing that much amongst themselves. They were competing against newcomers into the communication space. They set the pace and then the standards follow. And we need to start thinking like that. Vendors need to start thinking like that. Let's bring the new features, the new functionalities out, and then we'll standardize as we move on. If it's really good. If it's not good, then it will never get standardized, and we don't waste time doing paperwork.
Good answer. Back to automation. How will automation help CSPs like Telefónica provide their customers with the very best possible quality of experience?
Customers are demanding, as you can see it in your everyday life, that things are done almost immediately. We are becoming more and more used to having instant results. Sometimes that's not possible, but on your day-to-day life, you expect it. You know, you buy an airline ticket, and you don't even need to do anything except sit in front of your PC or your tablet and buy a ticket, go to the airport. If you're flying with a carry-on, you just move on and you go and get your seat and you're assigned. That's kind of the automation I think customers are looking for. That if they want to change their bandwidth for the weekend, because they're going to do a major backup of all their family pictures that they have, and they want to change their bandwidth, they should do it at a touch of a button. If we want to change the quality of experience, something that we're experimenting on right now inside the house, you know, you're working now that working from home is becoming more and more day-to-day for all of us. If you come home and the kids are playing with the PlayStation, but you're having a teleconference, you want to have change the priorities in the router at home, well, that should be automatic. Should be, well, not automatic, but at least it could be automatic. We're trying to work on algorithms that detect that kind of event, but that you could easily, you know, with a simple touch on the screen, change those things. That's what I think what residential customers are looking at, and the enterprise customers even more. What's happened is for many years we left them alone, and major enterprise customers have their own telecom departments that are overcoming that with OTTs and things like that, and they're relegating the telcos outside of the space that we used to be. And if we don't react and offer this zero touch, this automation, or this instantaneous response to their needs, somebody's going to come and do the job for us. I am convinced of that.
Okay, bit of a warning.
Yeah.
5G. I've been looking at very closely over the past 5 years at NFV and SDN and so on, and of course 5G is everywhere, or at least so you would believe if you believe the hype. I just spent the weekend working in England, in Bristol, at a 5G demonstration, which was made all the more difficult because it was snowy, but it goes to prove that it's possible to provide it, but only in a very limited area at the moment. So, how important is automation going to be when it comes to preparing properly for real life in the air, on the ground 5G?
The big expectation of 5G, as I understand it, is that we're going to jump from millions to billions of connected devices. It's not going to be from one day to the next, but on societies like Europe, and it's probably going to be even quite fast. If we have to manually instantiate and provision each one of these devices, somebody this morning on one of the speeches said that it will take him 280 years to automate something. I don't know if you heard it. And he said if they move on, they might be able to reduce it to 120 years, so something that is beyond life expectancy. And they were talking about communications today. Imagine what happens if tomorrow, we decide that this whole neighborhood, all the refrigerators, everything that it is going to be connected to the internet, starts being connected. So if we don't move the cloud to the edge, if we leave the cloud where it is today, somewhere in outer space, and we don't bring it down to the neighborhood, like we're trying to do with edge computing, it's going to be impossible to manage this. The amount of traffic that you have to move back and forth for simple answers. I'm not asking about, I'm not saying about transferring videos, just simple day-to-day. It will be completely unresponsive. The systems will collapse. The networks will not be able to handle having to manage the traffic steering and the traffic shaping that needs to be done. So zero touch is something, automation, SDN, NFV has to be there before 5G takes place, and it's a reality. And we have to have that capability, and if we don't start now, in 2020, I think is when they're talking about major 5G deployments, well, it's not going to be possible. Or it might be a light 5G that only tends to a few radio stations or radio bases, and I think that's my personal view.
We've looked at the potential for various technologies, we've looked at the potential for various markets, all on the upside, despite, but is there a downside to this? Is there the obverse of the coin? And I'm thinking here in terms of the operational cultural challenges facing CSPs as they automate key functions in the network. There's organizational challenges, certainly, but there's also the cultural challenges for the human beings who run the organization.
Yeah. As you well said, the major challenge to put these technologies to work today is a mental. People are moving from where you are. Humans, it's uncomfortable to move from your chair. It's difficult. But it's a reality. We're going to be automating things that before were done manually or required some human intervention. But at the same time, I think we should offer the opportunity to people, to workers, to transition to this new way of doing things. Somebody put very well on an explanation a long time ago about SDN that I was people out of OnLab that said that moving people to these new technologies of automation, it will make manual table setting more as a thinking of network transport, network infrastructure as an automated thing, and you need to think on another realm. And instead of being a telco engineer, you'll be a ninja telco engineer. You know, you have to you have to deal with more things in your head because there are more things happening, and your level of abstraction has to be higher. There's always going to be technicians that are working on the field and need things to be repaired. That's not gonna disappear with automation. But things that require an instant response and are done better by machines, you know, we have to learn to do that and learn how to program, how to specify, how to configure them, and that's a whole new realm. We cannot, as telcos, rely on a vendor of having all the knowledge and coming to you and giving you a set answer. You know, I think we have to start turning ourselves into back to where we were back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, when we used to specify, build and run networks. Today we're hands off and we think the responsibility is somewhere else. Well, we need to take back that responsibility and train our people to understand how things work, how they are programmed, and it's not that difficult. It's challenging, but that's what they pay us for, I think, you know, to be a little more innovative, a little more invasive, a little more daring on our day-to-day.
Excellent. Alfonso Carrillo Aspiatu, thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome. My pleasure.